Hello and welcome along to another episode of In Conservation with. My name is David Lindo. I'm also known as the Urban Birder, and I say Urban Bird, and I've got a wonderful scene behind me. But then again, I could be in Brighton or I could be in
Yeah.
Cleethorpes on a magical day. Um, yeah, so just wanted to say that In Conservation with is actually sponsored, as you can probably see. Um, Cower Sporting Optics, and thank you very much for sponsoring us, the manufacturer of the world-renowned Promenade series spotting scopes, and also Birds, Wildlife and Nature, the tour company that strives to deliver the best of birding and wildlife opportunities throughout the world. So thank you guys for sponsoring us. I'm really delighted to have with me today Joe Pender. Um, he's a man that I've never met before. I don't think we've met before, Joe, have we?
I don't think so. No, I don't think we've crossed paths as yet.
No, because I
Cool.
reckon most of the time you're on the boat and I was on land, so that's probably why.
Yeah, yeah. I did spend a fair bit of time on the boat.
Joe, how are you and where are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, I'm back at home on the Isles of Scilly. Just been getting the boat or the Sapphire ready. I've got to take it to the mainland next week for winter refit. So I'm just getting those things like that done at the moment. I did manage to squeeze nine holes to golf in this afternoon as well.
Oh, you're a golf, are you?
Play with my uncle. He's 96, so I'm going to play with him a couple of times a week.
And do you beat him?
He's very good, but I'm sort of he's at 96. I'm just about catching up with him, but he takes some beating. He holds the course record up there. But it's good
Yeah.
for a lot of stuff up there today. I had a swallow fly over today, and also there was a lot of field fairs and red wings and stuff up there, so it's quite good up there.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's interesting. We'll be talking a lot about the birds of the Isles of Scilly in a minute. Joe, by the way, was born and bred on the Isles of Scilly, a group of five uninhabited, sorry, of five inhabited.
Inhabited, yeah. There's plenty of uninhabited islands, but yeah,
I always think islands are uninhabited when I think about them, actually. But
some people put uninhibited on this rather than uninhabited.
excuse me, 28 miles off the coast of Cornwall in the United Kingdom. His family has a long history of being mariners and boatmen around the islands, and he has been, or he's had over 30 years of experience operating boats around the islands. That's amazing. You don't seem that much older than 30 anyway. I mean, you were born boating, but born on the sea.
My dad did it and my granddad did it. So yeah, I brought up, messing around with boats, punts, everything, So I started at a fairly young age, and unfortunately, my dad was taken ill about 91, and he had to retire early. So I took over the business then. And I've been doing it ever since. I had an older boat then, and then I had a Sapphire built in 2000.
Okay, so as you say, you are the owner and operator of the Sapphire,
Yeah,
15-meter passenger boat that can carry 90 people.
yeah. She got coded for 90, and I've also got a different license where I do the Pelagics as well. So she's got plenty of room on it. She's probably bigger than your average charter boat. So she's good size.
Okay. In 2003, both you and Bob Flood, who's well known in birding circles,
Yeah,
set up Scilly Pelagics,
yeah,
which is an ecotourism business specializing in seabird watching, research, and photography.
yeah.
Joe is responsible for ensuring that over 450 customers per annum, that's between June and September, have an enjoyable and safe experience appreciating the ocean wildlife around the Isles of Scilly, particularly seabirds and cetaceans. He also operates specialist fishing trips where he offers shark tagging as part of the experience and also part of an international conservation research program into blue shark populations. And you hold a WISE accreditation. What's that?
It's wise. It's just a wildlife thing, just to make sure you're approaching wildlife as similar to the IATO down in the Antarctica sort of thing. That's so just to make sure you're doing everything right when around wildlife, really.
Okay. You also are a volunteer at the Royal National Lifeboat
Yeah,
Institution.
I was. I've retired. I've finished there now. I got too busy. I did 23 years with the lifeboat, so the work started getting in the way with that in the end. So I had to stop in the end.
Yeah, but before then, you were awarded a Bronze Medal Vellum Award for a rescue operation involving a lone yachtsman.
Yeah.
Talk us through that. What happened then?
It was September 1993. There was a yachtsman anchored in one of the bays on St Mary's in Port Cressa. And then the weather went round to the southerly. He thought he'd be sheltered in there. And where he had anchored, the wind blew up to a sort of like force 8, force 9, and he was right on a bar that was breaking. So the sea was breaking over the yacht, and the yacht, we got called a lifeboat because he was in danger. But the yacht got knocked over, and the mast snapped on the seabed, and then he came up again. And we managed to get the lifeboat in there and grab hold of him off the yacht and pull him. As we pulled away, within about 60 seconds, the boat was gone. He was on his own. He was BT engineer, I think he was, the guy, if I remember rightly. So yeah, he's very touch and go. A minute or so later, he'd been gone.
Wow. You always think, I mean, I'm not a seafaring guy. I mean, I do like the sea,
Yeah,
prefer to be on it rather than in it.
yeah.
And I think we often underestimate its strength, don't we, as
Oh yeah, it
public.
can do. It can, yeah, it can be very powerful. So yeah, it doesn't take any prisoners. You know, so you've got to be very wary with it.
Yeah, because I saw a crazy video on YouTube once of a bloke jumping off one of those cruise ships from like the fourth floor up,
Yeah.
laughing with his mates. I'm not sure if he was seen again.
No, probably not. It's not a good idea to do. Plus, with all the all the wash and everything, propulsion, you could get sucked into somewhere. Yeah, not a good idea.
So, in terms of your boating, what's the word for it? Mariner.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like,
I've done a bit of everything really, So I've done this sort of boating. I've run other boats for other people in the winter, like jet boats and big outboard boats. I did do a spell down in Antarctica as an assistant expedition leader and driving Zodiacs in and around the ice, which is a bit different again, and landing on ice. And so that was a completely different thing for me, which I'll try and do again at some point. So I've
but
done a bit
what,
of,
I was going to say, what's it like? I mean, look, I'm a landlubber. Okay, so
yeah.
what's it like being a mariner? Do you kind of just love? You just is it second nature just to be on a boat out there that you don't really care about the weather or how does it work?
Like all the weathers. I mean, it's nice to have
Fine.
nice weather, but it comes with various challenges, winds, tide, low water, the tidal direction, coming alongside keys. So there's got lots of different challenges. And then where we are, obviously, there's lots of rocks, sandbars. So you've got to have a good knowledge of everywhere you go in. You have different licenses depending where you can go. But so you've got to, there's quite a lot involved with it.
And also you got to learn about using those instruments, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to learn your equipment, and the key thing is local knowledge around here because everything's changing. There's different states of tides, there's different places you can go or can't go. You can with the boat. Otherwise you could come unstuck. A lot of these places, especially in and around the islands, dry out, and you can walk between them at certain stages of tide, and then a couple of hours later you can take a boat up there if you know where you're going.
Yeah. So where does the birding come into this? When did that enter your life?
I mean, I've always been interested in wildlife, but when I started, me and some friends, we started doing the shark tagging probably back in the sort of mid to late 90s, I guess, something like that. And then we were seeing stuff out there, and some of the birders like Bob, before they sort of they realised what was out here, started coming out on the trips with us, just on a casual basis. So they're just we jump on and come and have a look, and then we're starting to see Wilsons and Corys and Greats and Sabs, and they started to realise how regularly we're getting stuff because I mean, 25, 30 years ago, Wilson's was considered a very scarce bird. Only a handful of records, maybe a year if you were lucky. But then once we started going out and on regular trips, and then it sort of blew up. Then all of a sudden, we're getting people phoning up, turning up on Scilly, saying, "Can you take us out to see Wilsons?" And we were just coming in and going straight out. But it wasn't organised. It was all a bit chaotic. I'd just come back from a trip somewhere and then somebody's bird had stood on the quay. Well, any chance of taking us out? So I'd go and grab some chum from somewhere and off we'd go. So we decided to make it a little bit more organised, and that's when we started with the Scilly Pelagics.
Yeah, because I remember back in the day, the main sort of sea watching opportunity going to the Isles of Scilly was on the Salonian, and I remember I've been to the Scilly Isles twice now,
Yeah,
both in the late 80s and both on the Salonian, and it wasn't a very pleasant experience in terms of watching other passengers there, but it was practically the one and only chance you had to
yeah,
do sea watching.
yeah. I mean, that was it. I mean, but we were seeing stuff out there on the fishing trips because the chum attracts stuff anyway that we were using for the sharks. So we're seeing these petrels. We didn't really necessarily know what they were. One of my friends had a picture of a Wilson's back in the 90s. It was probably one of the earliest ones photographed of Scilly, but he didn't realise at the time until he showed somebody later on. because they were just, quite often they were one of the closest storm petrels around the boat. Yeah, so it's certainly changed, and at the moment it's changing again because everything's on the move. The numbers of Wilsons, the number of the large shearwaters we're getting, a lot more of them. Cories were a very bird you'd get on odd day. If you get some nice warm southerlies, you get a few come up, might get them for a day or two, and then they're gone again. But now they're pretty much hanging around. Well, once they turn up, you say they might turn up like mid-July, early July. They're still here now, which is unprecedented, really. I mean, and in good numbers as well.
So do you think Corey shearwaters are hanging around because of some climatic change? I mean, I know it's an obvious question, but why do you think that's happening? Or is it just that we're noticing them more?
No, the ocean's changing now. There's definitely, I mean, things like mackerel, which was our sort of main fish we used to catch for chum, would be there all summer. But now they seem to have moved north. So we'll get them in the spring, maybe later in the autumn, winter. But they're moving north. And then we're getting other stuff, other spate fish moving like anchovies, small garfish. And then with that, Atlantic bluefin tuna coming. Well, these are probably fish from further south. So the tuna population's grown, and that's because the fish is there and the birds are just naturally following the food, I think. So we're seeing larger numbers of these birds feeding around the islands in quite often big feeding frenzies as well.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of
Probably
you.
worrying times for them, I should think. Yeah.
Say again?
Probably worrying times a little bit for them because whether they start breeding here, but they're coming a long way from the breeding grounds and staying away for longer. I mean, I know they probably won't be breeding until sort of like late February, March, something like that, but they seem to be staying up here a lot longer.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of your images.
That was
And
only a few weeks ago as well. That was in October that was taken.
can you explain what's there?
We were just running a pelagic near the. We weren't too far away from the Bishop Rock. We'd been out. We'd had several cories, greats, and that, and then we came across this. There was scopolies there amongst that lot as well, which is not easy to pick out, but somebody did manage to get a photograph of them. No, I think that day we had. Yeah, did we have three or four? I can't remember, three or four. We had quite a few this year, but say there's a few that day, and they were just in one mass feed, and then we were there. We were with them for maybe an hour, and then we are just about to leave, and then we had a humpback start blowing and was coming in to join the fun, which was a humpback we'd seen over several years. He's a bit earlier, so he normally turns up in about December. Yeah, he's not locally known as Pie because he's got a little sort of like pie sign on his hump on the back. But we could identify it as an individual we've seen before.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So we are seeing a lot more big whales, fin whales, humpbacks,
Yeah.
more regularly, especially and over the winter as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that drew me to you, Joe, as you probably know, I mean, I've told you already, but people watching may not know. And by the way, if you're watching this in the future on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Tell all your friends about In Conservation With. There's such a wealth of different information about the natural world, and I'm sure you'll be learning so much. But anyway, your photography was one thing that drew me to you because I saw well, I suppose initially in things like British Birds and other publications, your images the whole time of these
Yeah,
amazing seabirds, just like this, posing beautifully. And I thought, wow, well, I'll tell you what, let's look at some of your images. Let's talk about some of the birds and animals, other animals that have turned up on your pelagics, and let's hope that my thing works here because I'm doing this all from here. Right, can you see your
yeah.
presentation?
That was one. So we took back. I think that was the sort of third week of October. That picture, and I say that was the one with the humpback and that had scopolies. I think I can't remember the numbers, but it was 1,000 odd shearwaters or something just in that one area. Massive numbers, mainly cories, but several greats as well.
Okay.
That adult laughing gull, it was seen a few years ago in around the islands and then disappeared. And then we were down a reef known as the Pole Bank, which is sort of 3 miles southwest of the Bishop. And we're just out there just doing the normal thing, drifting and chumming for Wilsons and other birds. And somebody picked this gull coming up and saw the black head thought it was going to be an adult Sabs gull. And then it got closer and we realised it was an adult laughing gull. But it came from out to sea somewhere, so we're not sure. But it's obviously the same bird that had been around. So whether it nipped over to the continent and come back again. But yeah, that was a bit random. But that stayed with us for quite a while, sat around the boat.
There must be a lot of birds swirling around the oceans, or should I say, around near the coastline of Britain and Europe. that we just don't see because we're not out in the ocean. I mean, I'm talking about rarities that, are like this bird.
There's a lot of stuff that gets missed, especially probably, we can't be everywhere. It's big ocean, as we say. So there's a lot of stuff we miss in the summer. There's probably a lot of stuff we miss in the winter as well, because there's not so much people out looking around. You'd be surprised what can be hiding around the island, especially sort of like sea ducks or grebes and that, in around the islands as well, and
Yeah.
possibly rarer seabirds at sea as well.
Do you get, I mean, you often, as a landlubber like me, we do sea watching from the coast, and sometimes you see things in off the sea that aren't seabirds, like, for example, short-eared owls flying in, or nightjars, or, general migration. Do you get that sort of thing much when you're on your boats?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had short-eared owls, snow buntings, we've had hoopoes. The other few weeks ago, I was out doing just a normal tourist trip down to the Bishop Lighthouse, and there's a red-breasted flycatcher on there on the rock. So yeah, so we do get definite signs of migration, and yeah, we've had bats, moths, butterflies, so all sorts.
Okay.
Obviously, red-footed booby, very famous. Again, we're on a pelagic. I think we were down the pole bank heading towards the Bishop, and we were dragging chum and trucking bread off the back and pulling gulls in. And Bob Flood was down the back of the boat, and he seen this thing coming up, and he just got a bit of a state. He's looking at it, and he realised it had a pink bill, and he knew what it was, and he just shouted "red-footed booby," and it flew down the port side. And me and another chap, we managed to get some photographs of it, and then it turned away and went off, and then we thought that's it, it's gone. But luckily, we got photographs before it disappeared, which I would always recommend anybody get photographs, especially if it's something a critical ID, like a Scapoli's or South Coast. You'll get your photos. Anyway, I think there was a few local birders that missed it. It was on a charter we had with Oriel Birding that the first time we had it. But we're down the pole bank. I can't remember, it was a week or so later on a Monday. I think it was the following Monday? And anyway, we decided to come back in past the Bishop just as a nice little spectacle and just have a look. And as we came into the lighthouse, we looked up, and the red-footed booby was sat on top of the lighthouse looking down at us. So to everyone's amazement, it was still there. And then that was sort of early August, second week of August, something like that. And it stayed there till the end of October. And we took lots of people out to see it. And so I think the red-footed booby was about the first twitchable one, I think, the second for Britain. And then we was out on another day. I was taking birders out to see the red-footed booby out to the Bishop Rock Lighthouse. And one of the birders, we were looking at the red-footed at the top, and one of the birders said to me, I've seen something around the corner. He said, oh, I must be going mad. It looked like a brown booby. I said, it's probably just a cormorant or something, anyway. So I said, we're going to have a look. So we went around the corner, and this brown booby was also sat on the set-off of the lighthouse, and the red-footed booby above it, which, well, will probably go down in birding history, I should imagine. The phone went absolutely bonkers, everyone trying to get out there to see it. And luckily, it stayed till the evening. I came back out about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's still there. So they've got the two of them on the same lighthouse at the same time, which was that was an incredible day we'll never forget.
Yeah, sounds amazing. How many brown boobies have been in the UK? Do you know?
There's only probably a handful. I think there was one off Scilly Isles, there's one up Northumberland Way. There's been one or two again this year, but not many. Only a few. I think one of the first Twitch ones was down in off Cornwall, someone wasn't there, but so not many. It's funny enough, a guy he sent me a picture of a brown booby a few days earlier that had been taken off a ferry in Biscay and was asking for an ID on it, and also it was brown booby. So we did wonder this might be the same one, because that was not, it's only 100 odd miles away or something like that. And he'd taken a picture of it flying alongside the ferry. So whether it was the same bird or not, I don't know, but it could well have been.
I heard about a really interesting record from southern England. Was it last year or the year before, of a brown booby on the beach in Hove?
Yeah, they're certainly. I mean, these birds in tropics are certainly getting more regular. I mean, I think they've been red and brown again this summer scene. We haven't seen them, but there've been some reported. I think there was a charter rib had a red-footed booby just sat on the rail over the console one day. He just sat there. So I think they seem to be getting more regular.
Yeah, amazing.
This is our sort of like go-to bird, the Wilson Storm Petrel. This is what most people come down to see, and fortunately enough, the numbers, increasing. Some years a good year be 40 or 50, but we had nearly 400 this year. I think we had, I can't remember, 11 in the slick at one time this year, or it might be more. I had 5 in one frame. So we've certainly seen a lot more of them. But I think they are looking to split some of them, to different into maybe subspecies at some stage because there
So,
are some slightly bigger ones and smaller ones depending where they're breeding. If some of the Falkland birds, some of the Antarctic Peninsula birds.
so, what are the diagnostic features of a Wilson's storm petrel for those who may not necessarily,
You
you
can
know?
see the carpal bar is very strong on the Wilsons. European storm petrel has like white on the underwing, which you don't really see on the Wilsons. They've got more of a wraparound white rump, and they got the feet stand out. But also when they're coming into the boat, they're a lot steadier flight. They hold the wings out straighter. They're a lot, storm petrel's very erratic, a bit like a bat going around, where there's a lot more, a lot more. It's coming very steady, so a bit easier to pick up and bigger, and they're obviously quite a bit bigger as well.
So they're bigger than storm petrels,
Yeah, they're bigger than storm petrels. Yeah, so you'll see that they're quite, a reason. Once you've got your eye, you see they're bigger, but the flight pattern's a lot different.
and what did you say? They patter their feet on the waves as well? Because
They'll
that,
all patter on the way, but they will walk on water. Mate. We can get, if you get the sun right, you can get some lovely shots and show them the yellow webbing as well. The sun behind them because they've got yellow webbing in the feet. You won't necessarily pick that up with your bins or anything else, but you can catch it with a camera.
okay.
This is Leach's petrel, which is probably our rarest storm petrel, which is probably, fairly depending where you are up in the northwest. So you might see a few. But this was on a pelagic down towards the Seven Stones, September a few years back, and they say rare, very rare. We went out there specifically hoping to get leeches because there've been a few up in the northwest, hoping they're going to get one or two pushed down the Irish Sea, and then maybe come around Land's End down our way. So we went out on the back of some northwesterly gales, and fortunate enough, we had this one, and it showed well.
You know, I just realized thinking about Leach's petrel, I've only ever seen Leach's petrels maybe a couple of times in my life. And the best time was when I was on a boat going from Donegal to Tory Island
Yeah,
in Ireland. And there was a couple sort of loosely following the boat, and they were like quite wingy, turn-like almost in
they
their.
are. They're quite not very strong flies. That's why they get battered by, or they get wrecked on beaches. They're not the strongest of flies, especially but they are more, yeah, they're bigger again than the Wilson storm petrel, so a lot bigger storm petrel.
Yeah.
They're certainly rare storm petrel here. I've seen more Fayers petrels than I've leeches.
Wow. The other thing is, I guess you know that in America, there's this talk about name changes, changing the names of birds named after people. Have you heard about that, Joe?
I
Yeah.
haven't heard that. No.
Okay, well, it's a big thing in America at the moment. The American Ornithological Society are quite adamant to change the names, and it's created a massive problem, you know, us versus them kind of thing at the
All
moment.
right, yeah,
Um, I can get it with obviously some names of birds. Some people, were kind of not nice people, but then
yeah,
other people were actually quite good people.
yeah,
But there's species like this one, Leach's petrel, which actually breeds both in the New World and in the Old World.
yeah.
And I'm wondering what are they going to do about that? Because, you know, change the name. If you were to change the name, Joe, what would you call this?
Or leeches. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a very elegant petrel, something like that, maybe. I mean, it's fork tailed. Not sure really. It's not dissimilar to some of the band rump species, that sort of size. But say, I'm not really sure what I'd like to call it really.
Yeah.
This is again was a typical sign. I mean, let's say probably 10 years ago, you'd hardly ever see Corey sat like this, but quite often now, because they're feeding here for so long, we're seeing them rafting up. And normally they'd just come up for a day or so, then feed and go again, but get pushed up. But now because they're hanging around for so long, we're quite often getting feeding flocks just resting up, just sat on the water and coming along, big rafts of them. So yeah, and that's another Corey shield in flight.
So
So
Corys are quite similar to the Scopoles.
yeah, I mean Scopoles, there is Scopoles on there in a minute, but say they're very similar. I mean, Scopoles is slightly smaller. They've got more white fingering in the outer primaries. Slightly, this is Scopoles here. You got the extras. You can see the white projecting down into the primaries there. They are slightly slender build and head and everything. So a bit smaller, not easy to pick up in the field. Again, the way to get one really is every now and again we'll pick one up, but take pictures of them with your camera and then check your photographs because you've got to get the exposure right. You don't want to bleach this detail out. You've got to see that white extending down into the primaries there.
And do you get many every year?
Until last year, we'd only had a few. We had, I think, the first one we had about 2004, and then we'd had one or two. But I think last year we had about 30, and well, I don't know. We must have had another 10 this year or something. I'm not sure more, or 15 maybe. I don't know. Decent numbers. So again, with the increased number of cories, we'll get an increased number of scopoles, which is probably you'd expect, I guess.
Yeah, because scopoles they nest in the Mediterranean, don't they?
But
So
these are the Med rather than say the Canaries and places like that.
yeah,
But
so
I think last year there was a drought in the Med, so I think we probably saw a lot more last year coming up our way than normal. But it does seem a general, it's just there's so many cories. It's just trying to pick them out through the cories. We probably miss a lot as well.
yeah, because that's the thing. It's looking for that because I've seen scopoles down in the Mediterranean, and that ID feature of the white extending deep into the primaries is actually quite a good one because you can really tell the difference between that
Yeah,
and Bories, which has sorry, yeah,
the
the
head,
core.
head can be a little bit more like more of a bluey grey on the scopoles, and the bill's a bit slender. But I say the white extending down. But I say it's just trying to get those shots. I mean, so we just tell people check all your photographs, and that's the way. But most of the way we'll get them, especially if you want to get them submitted. Take your photographs and try to get some. And that one I took in October this year. A great shearwater again, coming all the way up from sort of mid-South Atlantic, Tristan da Cunha, Gough Island, but we get them pretty much right throughout the summer months now. There's probably still some around now at the moment with these feeding flocks out there. So we haven't been out for a few weeks. So gorgeous bird.
Gorgeous photo as well. I love the fact that
Yeah,
you've got both sides of the
yeah,
boat.
both yeah, yeah. They're
Um,
lovely, great shearwaters.
and again, it's a bird that I personally have only ever seen twice in my life, and both times near. In fact, once in Chile, I suppose, on the way
Yeah,
down to Antarctica. In fact, around that sort of continental shelf
yeah.
area, I had a couple, and they are, as you say, very elegant and quite distinct looking birds as well.
They are, yeah, with that white horseshoe on the back of them. They are very, but I say we get good numbers here. I say I think Corey's are outnumbering them nowadays, the way they're going, but I say we still get good numbers of the greats up here. That's at Thayer's deserters type petrels. We've had, well, I don't know, we must have had 10 or a dozen more of these. Difficult bird. So we had one seen this year, but not photographed. Oh no, so we had two. So we had one, yeah, one of the pelagics we had one wasn't photographed, then we had another one we did photograph. I think I'm trying to think what it was now. It must have been early September, and we had that one. So, but they sometimes this one wasn't too bad. It did hang around for I'll say a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds to a minute. This one particular, we had some stay longer, but sometimes they'll just whiz through and go. You don't get many chances with them.
Yeah, because I remember being on a boat going to on a ship going to Antarctica and seeing I can't remember which one it was actually soft plumage was
Off
that
plumage, probably, yeah.
and it will fly up in the air very differently to all the other ones, all the other shearwaters and petrels, and it will just dip down and fly up in the air all the time, really high up, and then come back down again. So it was quite distinctive, and I
They
can see.
are the thing when they're flying. It's just getting them coming in. Sometimes they'll seem to just come from nowhere. I mean, a few years ago we had 3 in 3 weeks, which is very good. But I've got some reasonable photographs of fares over the years, but taken a long time to get them because I say sometimes they don't play. They'll just come and go quickly, or be light to be going, and they come in last thing, just shoot up the back of the boat and gone again.
Because fayers were the holy grail when it came to sea watching,
Yeah,
seabird watching.
they
So
are. Yeah, I mean they do probably better on headlands for them than we do because it's sat in one place. But say we do okay. I've seen double figures now. We've also had Xenos a few years ago, which is that was a first for Britain. That was on a return trip from a pelagic as well. So
what's the Xenos? Xenos has that got a thinner bill?
yeah, smaller bill. Let's say a slightly smaller bird. Again, again, it's critical to get a good decent photograph, especially the underwing, to sort of get that one through. They got a lot smaller bill. These are quite heavily built, so these are probably on like Thayer's deserters types.
And where do they normally nest?
They're mainly, I think, mainly down in Madeira and places like that.
Okay, so not too far away.
No, not too far, no, but not big numbers of them there either. I don't think so. I haven't been down there yet. I've been planning on going down the next couple of years, hopefully.
Nice.
Again, we get a lot of long-tailed skuas, but not many adults. So that's but we had a nice adult this year and last year, but up till then we've hardly seen any. It's always been sort of like first summer, second summer birds generally. So to get a nice full adults, long tails is lovely, especially with full tail streamers.
Yeah, and they are quite of the of those sort of skewer species. They are quite distinct. I noticed that I think the first one I ever saw was when I was in Norfolk in Clyde, years ago, and it's flying along the coastline, and they fly every sort of wing beat. They lift their bodies.
Yeah.
They seem quite sort of dainty compared to
They
the.
are. They're not. I mean, the adult birds are obviously easy to ID. Some of the other ones can be more tricky. That was an adult long-tailed skewer this year. Nice bit of sunlight there. Yeah, I think the younger birds like this one can be more tricky. Not too bad when they come in close. But, looking at smaller bill and everything else. Normally got two white primary shafts on the outer wing, but they can be tricky. You know, skewers can be very difficult, especially as some of the younger ones.
Yeah, and Jaegers or skewers, by the way.
Well, some of our lot call them Jaegers. I mean, they are Jaegers, and yeah, they tend to go Jaegers for like long-tailed Arctic pom, and then just go skewers for like Bonksy or South Polar. So
Yeah.
that's a nice pom. That was this year.
So again, what's the best way of IDing a pom skewer, a Pomeranian
And
skewer?
they're fairly sort of barrel-chested, heavy bird. I mean, obviously this has got some spoons going on as well. Very big bill. So a fairly chunky bird, really, and say barrel-chested generally. They're not too bad poms. You can look at them and think, oh gosh, that's a big bird. It's obviously not as big as a great skewer, but it's getting up that way a little bit. The only time you can be a little bit, if say a younger bird between that and a Arctic maybe, but generally they do look quite beefy.
Yeah.
Again, another pom coming in. This one is coming into the back of the boat after food.
Yeah, this one confused me when I saw it actually because I thought I almost dismissed it as a gull.
Yeah, 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 definitely. A young pom, probably I'm not sure, said maybe a first summer or something like that.
It seems to have white legs,
Yeah, they're bluey. They're normally a bluey leg on some of the Jaegers or skewers, like a pale blue, like a nice blue.
but this one's white.
I don't know. I can't really see very well at the moment, but I think they look white, but I think it is. I think they are fairly like a light bluey colour. If I remember off the top of my head.
And what is the most frequent skewer? Excuse me.
It can vary year from year, really. Some years we get more poms and longtails. Other years we get more longtails and poms. It does vary. I mean, we did all right for great skewers as well as South Polars this year, but I mean, obviously the great skewers got quite hit by the bird flu a few years ago, and we didn't see that many for a year or two. But we've had reasonable numbers of bonksy this year as well, and we've had good numbers of pom as well. So good mixture of Arctics. So yeah, I think it's probably fairly even this year. I would have thought.
Yeah, and did you say you had Arctics as well?
We've
Arctic
had
skewer.
Arctic, yeah, we've had several Arctics. This is South Polar skewer. I'm trying to think, we had now five this year, was it? Was it five? I can't remember. Yeah, three last year and five this year. I think it was something like that. So very until last year, very rare seabird. We had one wrecked back in the early 2000s that was taken into care that we saw. It was ID'd by a South Polar by DNA, but up until then there've been very hardly any records really. Then last year we all of a sudden we started seeing a few here, and they had several off Spain and one off Cornwall. And then this year we went straight back out and started seeing a few more again. Very cold uniform color. There's sort of smaller bill and head, and so they look a bit different. They don't tend to hang around the boat much like bonksies do as well. They'll come and have a quick look and then go again.
Oh, so they're not quite as bulky.
They're not as bulky. No, the bills tend to be a bit smaller in the head and everything. They're not as bulky, and they do look very sort of cold uniform tone colors.
And with the South Polar skewer, do you go for the color as well? Are they more kind of?
Yeah. I mean, you can go. I mean, I'll go on the colour, but I say people like Bob and some of the other lads. I mean, what he'll do is we get a picture. They'll go on a malt score. Depending whether a South Polar skewer's malt will be different to a Bonksy's malt because it obviously comes from different come from the southern hemisphere, so they can work it out on malt score as well.
Yeah. And do you actually recognize most of the birds you see flying past you on the boat?
90% of the stuff I'll know. Some of the more critical ones. Like your South Polars now, you've got to be a little bit more. If there's anything coming in that possibly says skewer spur, we'll get some photographs and have a look at it. But most of your bread and butter stuff we get regular, pick them up fairly easily. Yeah. That was a juvenile Sabine scale. We get adults and jubs, and that was a lovely jub we had this summer. Came in. We've seen a few jubs this year. And yeah, I think they got to be can't be many birds as nice as that.
Yeah, to me, they're one of the most beautiful gulls going, and it's a species that I vowed never to twitch. I remember in 1987 when we had that great storm in southern England, and everything was blown down. I was actually on the Isles of Scilly,
Yeah.
and I heard that there were around about 15, maybe 20 Sabines gulls in London.
All right.
I was so tempted to come off the Scillies to go and twitch these birds, and I decided I'm not going to do it. And as it happens, I was coming off the islands just before or just after that storm anyway. So when I came off the islands, I rushed straight over to a couple of reservoirs, and of course, all the Sabines had gone. So I decided, right, that's it. I'm never going to twitch this bird. I want to find my own bird. And would you believe, Joe, I was in Puntas Arenas in southern Chile,
Oh
and
yeah, big, yeah.
I was just about to join the Antarctic ship, and I decided to walk along the coastline, do a bit of birding, and I came across a juvenile Sabine skull. I couldn't believe it. I took photographs of
Really,
it,
yeah. Long way from home.
and basically, it turned out to be the most southerly uh, Sabine gull in Chile ever.
What do you think? So yeah, I've walked across the front of Punta Arenas. There, you wouldn't expect to see one there.
No, I was shocked, and interestingly, there was an ornithologist, onboard ornithologist, on the ship, and I told him, "Oh, I've just seen a Sabine skull," and he said, "No, you haven't." I, I said, "How do you know that? You haven't even seen my pictures. You haven't seen it." He said, "You've seen a brown-headed gull." So I then took my camera out, showed him the pictures, and then he had to shut up.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, you wouldn't expect it, but yeah, we these things happen, don't they? But say, well, I think the best way I had about 26 in one trip. So save eyes girls, but yeah, they're a lovely girl.
Amazing.
These are short beak common dolphin. We get these fairly regularly on most trips. So dolphin wise, we'll get these bottlenose rissos, but the common dolphins are the most regular one we see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sorry, the dolphins, are they quite, they look quite small.
Yeah, common dolphins are not as big as bottlenose or rissos or anything like that. So they're one of the smaller dolphins, they're one of the smallest dolphins you'll see in the UK.
Yeah. Which one was Flipper?
Flipper was a bottlenose dolphin.
Is it-
We get offshore bottlenose dolphins, and you can get just a normal bottlenose. The offshore tend to be a bit bigger and darker animals. They might come up from Biscay somewhere, so they're slightly larger than the normal bottlenose. So they're quite a large animal. But say commons, we get regularly bow riding off the boat on most trips.
Yeah. What about porpoises?
Yeah, hog porpoise are here pretty much all year round, but they're quite shy, timid mammals, really. So every now and again they'll show reasonably well, but generally you'll just see the fin go through and they'll disappear again.
Yeah, they're tiny, aren't they?
They are tiny, yeah. They're not very big at all now. And this is a sort of walrus that turned, I think it was at Tembe. It turned up in Tembe, and then it went to France, and then I was going out on a pelagic, and I was just at home, and I got a phone call from our office saying that one of the yachts said he had got a walrus trying to get on board his boat and didn't know what to do. I thought I better go and have a look. You weren't sure if he was messing or not, so I went down with on the way down to get the boat in, and I had a quick scan out in Port Cressida Bay, and sure enough, this thing was trying to mount on top of one of the yachts. So I put the news out that there was a walrus in Port Cressida, and then we went out on the plage and went round to Port Cressida and had a look at him before we went out on the trip. And he hung around for quite a while. He made a little bit of a nuisance himself, but only harmless, nothing too drastic.
He wasn't the same one that got murdered in Norway, was he?
No, that was I think that was Frida, if I remember right. This Wally was a boy, and that was the girl, the one they shot there. But this one just made his way off one day. He started trying to get on boats and sunk a few, but then they made him a floating platform to jump on. And he's quite happy. He used to chill in the harbour, go off, do a bit of fishing, come back in again. So he was pretty good.
Interesting nostrils. It looks like he's got them closed off, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's not something I ever expected to see swimming around the harbour in Scilly.
Yeah.
You know nowadays. These are Risso's dolphins. Again, we get them reasonably regularly, not often. I mean, I'd say late May is a good time of year, or October, really. But say they seem to get more off Cornwall mainland than we see off Scilly, really. But they are around, and they're very large dolphin, large dorsal fin, blunt nose, and the adults tend to go very white and scratch. They start off. Some are dark and some are very white.
And they got quite a bulbous, almost like
Yeah,
whale.
very bulbous head on it, a bit like a sort of pilot whale top sort of thing. But yeah, very bulbous head on them, and they are very big. The full adults are huge.
How big are you talking?
I'm trying to think. Well, they must be 4 meters or something like that. Without looking at the top of my head, something like that. Good enough, so reasonable and full animal is big as well all round, and quite a large dorsal fin. Somebody see the dorsal fin and might be starting thinking orca or something else. But it's they've got quite a big fin on them.
Hmm.
Minke whale, I say, was one of our most common whales. So this was a feeding frenzy just southeast of St Mary's went into, and there was birds and shields going nuts. And these were lunge feeding. There was two animals there at the time. Also, you get the Antarctic minke, but these are the northern minke, and they got that white mark on the pec flipper there. So we see them reasonably regular, but we are starting to see some of the larger whales, fin whales, as regular now. And in winter months, we're seeing fin and humpback fairly regular as well as minke. This
Speaking
is a
of,
female. So we had a few this year. We had three one trip, and then we had two another few days later. So they're feeding around the islands. But this particular one, we went out on a pelagic in August a few years ago, and we came across lunging humpback feeding. And then we spent a bit of time with this humpback, and then we went off, and then we found fin whales, and then more humpbacks, and we had a few days of that. So I think it was two fin whales there at the time when we had this one, and they're the
fin,
second largest whale in the world, so they're huge.
I was about to say they're massive. I've seen fin whale before. They're absolutely
They're
ginormous.
huge, yeah. They're the second largest whale to blue whale, so they're big.
I learned very recently that the blue whale is not necessarily the largest animal in the world. Um, because there's this octopus, I think it is,
All
or
right, yeah.
squid or something, which is it's like another maybe 5 or 10 meters longer than the or maybe
Lives in about 1,000 foot water somewhere, I imagine, as well, probably. But I didn't realise I did because this one was fairly had a bluey tinge to it, but apparently these will mix with blue whales and breed down off Chile and sometimes. So there are some hybrid ones because they got an asymmetrical jaw on them. One side's dark, one's white. But some of them will breed with blue whales. But say this was a fin whale, but I say the skin, the tone of the flesh looked a bit more bluey than the other animal that was with it. It was a lot darker.
no.
This is a poor beagle shark. This is one of the sharks. We're seeing more of these now, but I say we generally tag and release blue sharks, but I say we are starting to see more poor beagles as well now. I think the sharks are getting a bit more protected from fishing, so we're starting to see better numbers. And these, not necessarily very long, but they're very solid fish and heavy. I mean, it's a blue shark. You might say is a spaniel. Poor beagle's a bulldog. They're just so solid and compact compared with a blue shark.
Yeah.
Blue are long, slender, but these are, and we are seeing more, and they're very closely related to the great white. So we're starting to see a lot more of these, and we'll tag and release these as well as blue sharks. And we did some satellite tagging with a program with Exeter University a couple of years ago as well. They were putting on some tags for 45 days that would record their depths. They were feeding out during day and night and where they were going, and then break off and then send all the information out after 45 days.
So I see that there's a tag on a dorsal fin of this animal, isn't
Yeah,
there?
we'd probably already tag this one, I imagine. And say we'll tag them, and then we've done tagging schemes with. We used to do it at Southampton University with the Oceanography Centre there. Now we do it with NOAA, based in the States, and they'll send tags and cards over, which are very much like bird rings. So you'll have a number on the tag. So you'll fill in the card with the number, the location where you caught it, the sex of the fish, size of the fish, condition of the fish, and then we send all that off to them, and then any recaptures they can work out its migration, gross size, how much it's increased in size or anything else like that.
Um, so another quick question: if I fell in the water next to that beagle shark, um, would I have my life to fear for?
Well, I would say probably not. I don't think we've known many records of people being injured, but any shark, they've got pretty sharp teeth. I mean, you might be a bycatch, but like if they were in a feeding mood, I guess, and you were in the way of it, they might just snap out. I mean, I know sometimes blue sharks, when they go into feeding frenzy, they got a membrane over their eyes, they'll pull down and they'll sort of start just randomly chomping at fish or something like that. But if you're in the way, you could be, you know, I have had a nip off one myself, off a blue shark. I wouldn't recommend it.
Wow. Speaking of the devil,
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's a blue shark. They're gorgeous looking shark. So we've got a very blue color. And we'll see these on the Pelagics, even if we're not fishing to tag and release. They'll quite often cruise up to the slick because they're attracted by the chum. So they'll quite often come up to the boat and swim alongside the boat, and they are lovely sharks. But say we will go out on certain trips and tag and release these as well.
How big is this shark?
This one probably about 6 foot, something like that. The biggest we've probably gone up to is about 8 foot. Um, so I imagine the biggest blue we've probably done is up to about 150 pound or so, maybe 180. But we did a Paul Beagle about 350 pound a few years ago, so they get a lot heavier, solid.
And talk us through the process of tagging them. What happens? You have to sort of,
But yeah, we'll put baited hooks out. We've got special hooks that are designed to catch them in the corner of the mouth, and the barbs are crushed on them. So we pull them on board, take the hook out, measure them, tag them, and then put them back in. We look at the sex and put them back in, and the whole thing's over and done within a minute or so.
and are they like thrashing around or do they?
Generally, we try to make sure they're reasonably tired before we pull on, and then we'll just sort of push, hold them down, and get it. Try to get the whole process over and done with fairly quickly.
Yeah. And how many have you tagged since you've started working on the projects?
Oh, well, we must have. I don't know. It must hundreds. I don't know. Several hundred, 400. I don't know more probably.
So they're not particularly endangered in any way.
Numbers are vary. I mean, we are. I don't think they're doing as well because I mean they do get targeted by sort of people catching them for the fins in that certain areas because these sharks obviously we get nearly all female sharks. They breed off the eastern seaboard estates and places like that. So mainly we think the females come up our way and pup on the way, probably because the males may well eat the pups, possibly. So we don't see many males. We get the odd immature male, but generally 90% of the blue sharks we catch will be female. So, but I think a lot of them will get hit on the way across the Atlantic, longliners and things like that, and get killed. So they're not getting targeted in the UK waters by UK boats, but they will be getting targeted by other countries.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
What is it about the waters around the Scillies that attracts so much life?
I think, firstly, we've got to remember we are pretty much 30 mile out to sea before you start. So we're already plonked ourselves out in the Atlantic away from sort of mainland. And there's a lot of sort of natural upwellings and tides and that, which must bring nutrients up. But I think one of the key things is the fact we are already out in the middle of the Atlantic already before we started. And then so we don't have to go very far to start seeing stuff. Get stuff on your doorstep.
Are there other areas in the UK and Ireland that are good for pelagics?
Yeah, I mean, I think places like off Ireland are very good. I think they get out some of the banks out there. I think the problems they probably have is getting out I mean, the best time to do pelagics generally, you don't necessarily want a gale of wind, but you want some wind because birds like wind to fly. So you want to get a bit of breeze going, and it blows the smell down and track stuff. But I say because we're in a group of islands, we can go north, east, south, west. But you can't do that if you're on like mainland. You can't just it's not easy just to go north of these places if you need, you've got a southerly gale or something. So we can go in any direction depending on the weather within reason, which gives us a sort of better chance. But I think some places, I think the way they're going with the greats and the cories, there's some places are seeing more stuff like that. They're probably not getting the Wilsons like we are and other stuff, but I think the greats and cories are around in good numbers, and they'll start. A lot of places will see them.
Let's get technical about being on a boat because it's all very well talking about, yeah, it's great, get on a boat, I can see all these birds, but not everyone can get on a boat. I mean, I know someone who actually she gets seasick on a canal boat.
Yeah.
Um, so firstly, the people that come on board, are most of them good when it comes to sea legs? And what advice would you give a would-be pelagic adventurer?
We tell people on the website in the booking, I say if they're not sure, I'd go see the pharmacy, try to get some different, seasick or motion sickness tablets. I mean, some people also reckon that ginger biscuits are quite good, but I'd keep busy, keep looking at the horizon, you know, and just try to sort of like concentrate on what you're doing. I think once you sort of give up, then you've had it then a little bit, but it's difficult. Some people get over it. I've seen a lot of people that weren't very good, and then they'll do a few trips and they will adjust. They might not be too good on the first trip and then better the second and go on, but some people just can't get on with it. It's just not their thing.
Because I thought I had really good sea legs until one day I was in Iceland, as it happens,
Yeah.
and I was on a boat while watching, and the woman kept on announcing, if you're going to feel ill, if you feel ill, please do not use the
Yeah.
toilets,
We did
please.
that.
And she kept on saying it 4 or 5 times, and I started feeling ill.
Yeah.
And then I had to spend the rest of the time lying on my back. And then from that point, that woman ruined me. And then the next time I did a big trip was when I went to Antarctica, and I thought, right, I'm going to do this. And I wore a patch,
Yeah.
excuse me, and I spent all the time, daytime on deck.
Yeah.
So, but the problem I had was at night because obviously I had to sleep,
Yeah.
and my cabin, it was dark, and I began the demons of seasickness began to surround me, and my brain came up with a brilliant idea. I had a bit of ginger beer actually, which worked a
Yeah.
bit, but my brain convinced everything else that I was in the womb. That's why I was rocking from side
All
to
right.
side, up and down. And when I thought that, I was fine after that. So I think that's the secret.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've been doing it a long time. I'm used to it, but I do feel for people that come out, and I admire them that come out and they persevere as well. I've seen people come out and been really bad, but they've come back out again and you know carried on, which is I take the hat off because it can't be anything worse, than doing that. I mean, I say when I went down to Antarctica, we had a lot of people sick. We left Falklands, went down, and I did feel for the the people getting injections and just taken to the beds for days. So it's not a nice thing, I don't think. But I advise you go to your pharmacy, take take it to start with, and if you feel all right, you can try and wean yourself off because it does make you drowsy. But if you're not sure, take something.
Yeah, well, I did that trip to Antarctica with things, but the second time I went to Antarctica, I went without. I
Yeah,
thought I'm going to do this, and I did it. And I thought to myself, if I can do that, if I can go across Drake Passage and
yeah,
not throw up, then I can do anything. I did a trip. I did a trip to Lundy Island this year, and it was one of the worst trips. Even the ship said it's one of the worst trips they've done in years. The swell was incredible, and one woman who was sitting in front of me outside, she just conked out, and she was basically out for the rest of the day. I mean, when I took her off, the practically took her off in a stretcher. It
yeah.
was
We get people like that. I
dead.
mean, I think the trouble is with the Pelagics, steaming and chumming's okay, but when we stop and drift, that's when it tends to get people because we'll stop broadside to the swell, put rubby dubby out. So it's not over. We tend to use frozen stuff now, so it's not too smelly, but the boat's rocking, back and forth, and you're not moving. So that tends to be what will get a lot of people sometimes.
Yeah, for me, it's the smell of diesel.
Yeah, yeah. Not so much that. The fish might get some people, but it's probably worst case scenarios. But I say people get over it, take tablets. But I mean, it's not a massive problem, but we always get some.
Okay. Now, you take some great photographs. Any tips for would-be photographers? Because, I've tried on ferries and stuff to take pictures of birds flying past, and I get the impression it's all about anticipation sometimes because they suddenly swerve away. Your
Yeah,
camera's not hasn't got the zoom to get it, and also there's a lighting issue as well because obviously sometimes it's dark and next minute a light.
yeah. You got to get the exposure right, depending on what the bird is. You also, I mean, unfortunate on a boat because I've been doing it all my life. I've got very good balance, so I can walk around on the seats and stand up and get shots when people are probably struggling to stand up. Secondly, you also certain birds you can just sort of read what if you know what they're doing, you've got some idea. You can probably try and anticipate what they're going to do. And the other thing is getting the exposure right, depending light birds, dark birds, because you don't want to lose too much detail one way or the other. But I'd always check your camera. Don't just rattle off hundreds of shots and then look, you got hundreds of bad ones. Take one or two, just check it. If you need to make any adjustments, make it, as you're going.
I mean, what do you shoot on? Do you shoot on manual?
I use AV on there, and I always use take everything in RAW as well because you can recover so much stuff. A lot of people use sort of large JPEG. Now I always take everything in RAW, and then at least you can recover stuff if you've got the exposure slightly wrong as well.
And how long have you been taking photographs?
Again, it's probably getting up 20 years now. I should think. You probably wouldn't know. He lives in Spain actually. Brian Thomas. He was a chef here in the and a birder in Pilot's Gig, and he got me into it originally. He's come out on the trips, and I had a camera off him and SLR, and over there I had different ones. I've just changed over to mirrorless now, which took a lot of getting used to. I've got a full frame normal one, but I say the mirrorless took a lot of the digital viewfinder took a lot of getting used to. I couldn't get on with it at all to start with, but now I'm getting better results with it, and the detail is superb. So hopefully they'll just go from strength to strength.
And do you ever go birding on land?
Yeah, yeah, we go out fairly regularly, walking around. I mean, work gets in the way some of the time, but say always out wandering around. If I go out, I always take my binoculars with me, and even in on the boat, if I'm just doing normal day to day trips, I've always got bins and camera with me. I found some good stuff over the years. Not necessarily things like black gilly moths, which is not rare on the mainland
Question.
necessarily, but rare bird for Scilly. That was 20 years ago. There's never been any since, and I think they were first twitchable ones. And so things like that, redneck grebes, surf scovers. So just American black duck, just going around. Always have a little nosy around if I've got 5 minutes.
Do you ever, if there's something really mega on land, do you ever sort of think I need to go and twitch that?
If I've got time, I'll go and see it. But if not, I just have to let it go. Obviously I've got to put work first. So yeah, some people go mad for it, but I say I've not missed much. I've seen most things.
And when you're out to sea, I mean, doing a pelagic, how long do they last for normally?
Average trips 5 hours. Some of the other ones can be up to 7, but an average trip's at least 5 hours normally. So it's quite a while, but then normally entails an hour out. So we normally try to get about an hour out, sort of 3 hour drift, and then an hour in, depending on what we're doing really. But we always drifting's good for storm petrels. Steaming, you might do better finding shearwaters and other stuff, possibly, or pulling skewers in if you're, tramming off the back. But say to get storm petrels really or Wilsons and that, you want to be drifting. Yeah.
And are your ships, is your boat full normally of eager birders?
Yeah, I mean the Pelagics are now getting to the stage now we're pretty much selling out as soon as we put them up online now. It's getting, especially I think everyone's aware that the changes. I mean, most of them have probably seen Corey's Great Wilsons, but with South Polars and Scapolis now being seen fairly regularly, there'll be a lot of twitchers wanting to get on them on the list, I should think. And
And
there's always a chance of something else as well, especially last year with the red and brown booby. You never know what you're going to get.
yeah, is there ever, is there a bird, a species that you want to see on the boat or from?
I always fancied the idea of seeing something like a white-faced storm petrel or something like that, which is not impossible. I don't think. I think it's certainly with the way things are going with other stuff moving north. I think there's a reasonable chance, you know, get one sooner or later.
Well, I'll be keeping my eye out on social media for that day
Yeah,
when the picture comes on.
it's got to be on the cards. You've got to always got to want something in it.
Exactly. What is your favorite seabird?
I mean, I always used to say Corys, but I do love a Sabsgull.
Oh, beautiful.
Adults and Juvs. I mean, the full adult is stonking with that sort of black head, but they've got that extra little black ring around the back of the head. The full adult Sabsgull or juvenile, they're stunning.
Yeah, the beautiful birds, absolutely.
Yeah, they are.
And if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be?
I'd probably like to go back down to Antarctica again. I went down there for 6 weeks a few years ago, working down there. I'd like to go back down there again. It was the wildlife and everything was stunning. I'll say myself, I spent most of the time in between work on the back deck photographing albatrosses and Cape petrels, and then you get down in amongst the peninsula and the whales and everything. It's just great.
Yeah, I think my favorite seabird actually is the Antarctic petrel
Oh yeah,
because I think it's got such an attitude. Just for those who don't know, it's a bird. Um, well, it's a shearwater, I suppose, even though it's called a petrel. It's
yeah.
quite. And what I loved about it on the boat going to Antarctica, one showed up, but unlike all the other petrels, it just came, sniffed around, circuited a couple of times, not in the same pattern as the other birds, and then
Nice.
just flew off, and that was that. And I love that attitude. I love their attitude.
Yeah, snow petrel was nice down there. I was fortunate enough to recover two off the deck of the boat one morning, so I had to pick them up to catch and release, and they're stunning birds as well.
Yeah. And band rumped petrel.
Yeah, we had one back in 2007, something like that. So yeah, Madeira and Band Rump, so they sort of lumped them all together. But I say, yeah, we had one off Scilly, here. So that's another chance of getting one of them again, I should think.
Yeah, because when I was on the boat in Antarctica, the ornithologist who dissed my Sabines, he obviously had a problem with me. Um, we found a band rumped swallow. He found one on the deck.
Yeah,
So he was showing it to me, and I had my phone now, and I was doing a video, and he thought he was dead, but all of a sudden it kind of came to life,
yeah.
and he went like that, flayed his arms out, hit my phone. my phone, I watched it. It went up in the air, over the side of the boat, and now there's probably a whale or a seal in Antarctica using my phone.
Yeah, not good. Not what you want, though.
Uh, Joe, thank you very much for today, for coming along and talking to us about your work as well as the seabirds. Um, and I'd like to thank all of the Zoomers for being here today as well to listen to us talking. Please, as I say, if you are watching this in the future or even watching now, um, look on the Urban Birder channel, YouTube channel, and you'll find 160, 170 conversations just like this, but about different subjects. And please tell your friends and like and subscribe. Uh, all I can say now, until we meet again, keep looking up.